Jim, it's so amazing to have you. We're going to have our folks jump on into this webinar. And we want to thank you for joining in, team, if you're coming in today. And Jim, when you had this opportunity, you were talking a little bit about your administration and how supportive they were for you to be able to kind of come in together. And that's what this idea is all about, is about sharing ideas and sharing resources.
Yeah, my administration, the Nipmuc, well, Mendon-Upton Regional School District out in Upton and Mendon, Massachusetts, near the Rhode Island border, kind of central Massachusetts, below Worcester. I teach at the high school there, Nipmuc Regional High School. Been teaching for over 20 years, and they have been the most supportive administration. I accidentally thought this might be during school time, got the times mixed up. And they were so super supportive. They said, hey, we can do this during school. That's fine. We'll cover you. So, but thank goodness it's 6:30 here, nice and dark.
That's really what it's about. We have, teachers come together. Everybody's working so hard to make an impact and a difference for kids. And we love it. Like here we are, we have educators coming from across the country. So if you're so kind, just share with us where you're coming from. So I'm Joe. I'm here in San Diego. We heard on the East Coast. So everybody come together for learning. And so this is what we're talking about today. Creating cognitively diverse teams. But what blew my mind with this, Jim, was that you had kids, high school kids, presenting to NASA scientists. Like get me into this, and how did that happen?
Yeah, here, let me share my screen. Here we go. Okay. Excellent. Can you see that, Joe? Excellent. Good. Okay, so this is the team. I call them, this is one of my dream teams. Some of these boys are, or were, sophomores at the time. And I was lucky enough to meet Dr. Camarda, who was a NASA engineer, and he's now retired. But I've worked with him for over 12 years, developing a special brand of engineering called ICE methodology, Innovative Conceptual Engineering Design. These boys joined, and part of the method we're going to talk about tonight is the collaborative piece, because that's so important. I mean, not only to engineering, but everything we do. Think about your departments, right? If you're not collaborating with people, you can't get that information, right, back and forth. So these boys here, we went down to NASA for 3 years in a row, really. And this is an eclectic group, right? Actually, all of these weren't in part, there were only 4 of them are part of one team, and then a couple, another set from another team came.
And Jim, I think we're going to hear that one of these kids was a DNF student, like literally was like disengaged from school. And here you are, like, here he is presenting to NASA.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Sophomore year, right? DF didn't really care about much, but really got turned on by the project, which was all their own driven thing. They came up with a SOTS-1. It was a solar oven to put on Mars. And first I thought it was crazy, but one of these boys, he's book smart, the DF student, they got along so well. And the way I made this team was using a special method called Teamology. It's from Stanford University. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, and how we can leverage some of Thrively's tools to really facilitate that process of not only being a cognitively diverse team, and what that means is each kid kind of sees the world in a different way, interacts with it in a different way, which we want that. We want them coming at problems from every direction they can. But then there's also another component where they have to buy into that. They actually have to value those other students. So part of the takeaway today will be teaching you kind of how you can do that with the kids, or how you can facilitate that process. It's a science, but it's also an art, right? We're all individuals. You have to interact with each team in their own way. And so Thrively will kind of give you
I love
insight
it.
on how to do that.
I think what's cool with this is there's just the idea of teamology, like that study of teams and how you bring them together, that art and science of teams, and leveraging what's great about each learner. We talk about that so often with Thrively, about allowing them to be great at what they're great at, to really flex those strengths. So I can't wait to see how you navigated that using the Thrively tools, but more importantly, allowing students to step up and we step back. So show us what you got.
Absolutely. So here's Doug Wild. He's from Stanford University. Back in the early 2000s, he came up with Teamology. Working at Stanford, they're really big into engineering. They wanted their teams to be successful, so they went about studying how can we make that happen? What teams have been successful? What teams haven't been successful? And why? Why does that all work? And so they boiled it down. Boiling it down is a light term for a large book, but the book you can actually download here at this link, the Teamology book, the tiny URL. This is the cover here. But in short, what he does, he uses Myers-Briggs and Jung to take the personality of each kid, and then he matches that personality up. In the activity you'll see today, we're going to take that off your hands and let the kids engage, because that gets them into the process and giving them some buy-in. Okay, but the main point with Teamology here is that you are doing a personality assessment. So this is where Thrively really comes in, because Thrively has several assessments you can use. But when you're in the class, before we get there, when you're in the class, there's the book, right? That would be like your light reading. But there's 2 articles here that he wrote back in like 2010 timeframe, 2009, 2010. This one here is what I give my honors students, a more honors level text. And this one would be a more simplified version of it. This one goes into a lot of the psychology bits of it, which the kids can study as well. But this one just gives the general like overview, lower level.
I will put this in the chat, so if you want to just click on these links directly. So thank you so much, Jim, for giving us those resources, because that's so often is like, where is the science behind this? Where does it come from? And it's so refreshing to take the research of the design methodology and bringing it into the classroom. So super cool.
Absolutely. Okay. Oops. There we go. So Thrively, how does Thrively fit into this whole teamology thing? Well, when you log into Thrively, right, there's 4 assessments every kid can do. Tonight, we're really going to focus on the strengths assessment. This one's hugely powerful. It gives you like 23 different strengths you could be. It's like 80 question tests. So it takes the kids a little while to take the assessment, but it is so worth it. Our school did it, has every student take it in their advisory period. So as a teacher, I find it very useful because I can go in and look at each kid's strengths and start pairing that with assignments and pairing students together. Kind of behind the scenes, they don't know what's going on, but that's me actually like setting up little scenarios so that they can learn better and leverage each other's ability to teach one another, right? It's not always about me teaching the kid, it's about them coming together and negotiating that meeting. Go ahead.
No, just what I appreciate about that is oftentimes we hear about how are kids able to navigate lines of difference. And we see that in our ecosystem right now, being able to come across that space and be appreciative because of the diversity of perspective that you're bringing. My blind spots are getting in the way, but if we actually can come at this a way of empathetically like amplifying your perspective so that I have a more enriching experience. And that happens because you talk about what's great about each kid.
Right. Right. It's not looking at the kid's negatives. Oh, he's really good at this. You know, she's not so good at that. It's like, what are my strengths and how can I support this team? Like, where do I fit in? And Another big one here for it is habits of mind. This one is all, instead of being strengths, right? It's all, how do I think about a problem? When I'm stressed and have to solve a problem, what are my go-to strategies for solving that? And if you can get a group that has diverse amount of strategies for solving a problem, that group is going to be so much stronger. Okay. And there's also
such a great way to think about it, because you're constantly looking at it from your blind spots. Like, what are the blind spots I have? And how do you bring people in to like open up that optics that I might not have been paying attention to?
Right. Yeah. A lot of times I tell the kids, you know, remember, you want a team that's balanced, right? Not everybody on the same things. You want that board, as you'll see, that board to be full, right?
So you're giving us a little insight. So there's something like a strategy that you use as a teacher tip that's coming up, I'm hearing.
Right.
Awesome.
Yep. And so these other ones are helpful, but for tonight, making teams, we don't necessarily have to focus on them. Multiple intelligence is really just about how does a kid like to learn? So that's really helpful for me, to how I am going to teach that kid. How can I best reach that student? The interest profiler, that one, there is also really, what are the kids interested in? So how can I set up my assignments so that they're gonna engender some interest from the students? Okay, but let's zoom in. When I do a Thrively survey, this is what I get, or partly what I get. This is the main outcome, right? I get my top strengths up here, right? So I'm social justice, I'm analytical, flexibility, I have academic and wordly, right? So I get this little statement about me, and I laughed when I read it. You are analytical with an impressive flexibility and remarkable academic. And I laughed, and I'm like, Mom, asked my wife, is this me? And she goes, yeah, that's pretty much you. So I was kind of hooked on it at that point. I was like, oh, maybe this will work, because it was a really good description of kind of who I am. And then you could click on these. This is just an image, so you can't click them on here when you look at the actual.
Yeah, I can jump into the site there. And I think what's important at this point to share, one, I have a fantastic partner here, Amy Lane. Thank you for joining us. But the other bit here is that these 23 strengths, we have all of them.
Yeah.
It's just, where do we like leverage our best efforts come out of that? Like, it's kind of like your battery life on your cell phone.
Absolutely.
Right? Have you ever noticed that? Like, you're in certain areas and the battery just like poops out. But in certain areas, you're like, well, my phone can last all day long. And that's kind of like how strengths are, right? We have them all, but in certain areas, man, we just go all day when it comes to being worldly or being flexible. Like, put me in that space, man. I'm happy to be jumping in there. So I think that's what's important for our listeners to really hear, is that, yes, you have them all. And we really want you to like double down on those things that you're great at.
And the students can see that when you go in Thrively. This is just kind of the summary. And under this, there's a list of the 23 of them, and it will give you like a bar, like, right, your battery bar, right? How much do you exhibit that? And it will just take the top 5 and make a nice description of you. It's not that you don't have all of them. But another thing here, it's important that students realize, gee, I do have some of that. Maybe I can develop that strength, right? How can I learn from you? How can I learn from you? You're really strong here. Teach me, what do you do? Right.
I like that. I like that. It's kind of like this. I kept saying flex, but I'm hearing this stretch as well. Like, you can flex and stretch, flex and stretch.
Yeah. Right. You're not necessarily looking at, oh, you're really strong in social justice, you're going to be the social justice guy. It's, hey, you're going to be, you're really good in this skill, like social justice. Lead us in that. Teach us the way. Like, how are you strong? Why are you so strong in this? Right. And having the kids flex a little. Okay, so here's some student testimonials. It's like a short 30-minute. Let me know if the sound plays. I don't.
You said 30 minutes. We're going to be in this.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Sorry. Actually, I guess it's 47.
Mr. Rona, and I'm
Can you hear it?
Gracio, and we're going to talk about how the Thrively profile that we both did helped us as a team. So we both took it, and it took about like an hour. And doing the video, it helped us find out that yes, we do have some similarities, but we are also very different and we are very complementary. We're very well matched trait wise because we are so different trait wise. Whatever strengths and weaknesses she has, I either usually at least have a weakness that is where she is strong and have a strength where she is weak.
You know what's cool about that? They use the word weakness, and I think that's interesting. That's the humility to say, like, it's like that understanding that I can step into the space and not be blamed or shamed for having something that I might not be as strong with, but I can say, like, you know what, you can bring this to the team. And I thought that's so cool. And the other student, like, clearly she must be creative. She has like stiletto stones in there or something going on. I love it.
Yeah, these two, they were a pairing I wasn't sure about, but then once they showed me their sheet, which I'll show you in a minute, the strength sheet, I was like, oh my gosh, you two almost perfectly complement each other, because they went through and they were plotting a lot of their like their top 10, I think, strengths is what they ended up doing, and it was just down the sheet, and I was like, wow. And they're like, yeah, now we really know why, and we understand why we work well together. And them going around and bringing other people in that kind of match their holes and fill them, like,
I think that's cool. So I think that's a strategic thing that you said. Like, they are discovering through their interview process, I would call it an empathy interview, through that process, like, where do we have a hole on the team? Oftentimes, in teams, we like hire people who are exactly like us. And that's actually a really hazard, because then we're constantly just building up this blind spot to, I would call it innovation, like where we can actually see change and create the future that doesn't exist. But actually intentionally designing an experience where kids are thoughtfully looking to fill a hole. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Excellent. Oops, sorry. There we go. So here it is. Let me bring it up on big screen here so you guys can see. So I put the link in there. So this is a Google Doc template. So all you have to do is press use template and it will create a copy for you. If you use Google, if not, you can download
Man,
it.
Jim, a culture of sharing right here at Thrively. That's beautiful, right? It's not like, hey, let's go pay a teacher to make this right here. Like, just go use it tomorrow. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta help each other out. I mean, times have been bad enough. We don't need to recreate the wheel.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, brother. We have Thanksgiving coming up. So here's a culture of gratitude. So thank you. So walk us through this.
You're welcome. Excellent. So when I was using Teamology, we had a version of this I created for Teamology, which was all about their personality traits. But here I just one lunch went through and said, you know what, I got to change this up for Thrively now. And I just took all the pictures from the site, popped them in, made this document. So it's one pager, printed it out. Students can go around so they can see their strengths. They know their top 5 strengths. So they're going to put their name at the top here. They come through, they put their name in these member boxes. So Jim, I put, academic and analytical, right? And I go through and do all the ones for me, like flexibilities here. And then I would go around the room and I'd start interviewing other students and say, what do you have? Show me yours. And, it's not that they visually, some kids learn orally and others learn visually, right? I'm a person, I like to see it. And so when I go up to a kid and I can instantly see, oh, you match my holes, right? I can stick you in here. And then it starts a whole conversation with those kids. What does this really mean? What does it mean to be creative skill or memory or patience, right? And so then they start that conversation and they get the ball rolling on assembling a team, right? It's not, doing it this way is not a straightforward process, right? There's a little, we'll say focused chaos to it because the students are going around interviewing each other and kind of finding the best patterns because, right, there's these strengths we're looking at, but then we have to view students as a whole. And it's not just that classroom environment or just their strengths we gotta consider. It's also what happens outside the classroom. Are these kids on a team together? Do they have different likes, not, don't like each other, that sometimes we're not aware of?
Yeah, that was such a mic drop moment that you said right there. We need to think of students as a whole. And I think that's just so critical when you think about that. Like we were doing interviews with college recruiters for our high school experience. And guess what they said?
What?
We don't want a well-rounded kid. We want a spiky kid because we want a well-rounded ecosystem. So what it allows kids is to really hyper focus on those things that they're really great at. And you're looking at this whole system as a whole. And I thought that was really, really fabulous of you to design it that way. The one other bit that got my attention is that this whole piece where you step back, you allow the students to step up. And I think that's what we would call like moving from designing for, like, I'm going to create this for you kids, versus we're going to design this with you. Like you are going to be at the center of this learning. And I think that's such a cool pivot too, that you giving the responsibility of learning right in the fingertips of the kids.
Right. It's not easy to do, right? Because we're all trained, hey, I got my lesson, we got my lesson plan, it's got to fit in so much time. And now I'm asking the kids I'm pretty much handing my lesson plan over and saying, hey, here you go, for the next however many minutes for you guys to figure this out. It can be a messy process, but it's a valuable process that I think not only helps the teacher get great teams, but it also helps the students, A, better understand themselves, and B, understand those around them, right? So many times we think of diversity in terms of race or ethnicity or whatever, right? And what we always miss, every classroom always has this, no matter where you are in the country or in the world, is cognitively diverse people, right? It exists no matter where you are, right? And I think it's time we start leveraging that in the classroom and recognizing those practical examples.
Man, can you believe it? We're already like 22 minutes into this 30-minute session. Like, wow, how awesome. So we have 8 more minutes. I know we are super critical. We want to make sure we leave a space at the end. But my takeaway right away is this: you're giving the ownership to the kids. They're being really strategic around finding the holes for themselves. And then now they're going to like design for a purpose. Like, why would I use this team?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could use it for whatever, really. Like if you are in the classroom doing project-based learning or problem-based learning or any PBL, phenomenon-based, this is wonderful because you start getting your groups together. You're just not making the groups. Oh, you're a group of friends, you'll work good together. Why though? Why are they working together? You get those collaborative skills.
You remember how they did it in the, right? Here's the picket stick. Oh, Johnny, Bill, Sharon. Yeah. Like, okay, like how intentional was that? Okay, no blame or shame, but like the reality is like put a little like here's an opportunity.
A little tweak and you can make it a super powerful experience that's going to last for those kids, right? You're really training them not on the curriculum you're doing, right? But as a whole, as a teacher, as educators, we're educating the whole kid. How do you interact respectively with other people? How do you, basic classroom management things.
Yeah, it's so cool because learning is so social, right? And the humanity of learning, like you're bringing humanity back into that learning experience because we're learning from each other. Like I'm in this moment, I'm learning from you, and we're able to articulate and like get a better understanding of what like the future of learning should look like for our kids. And it's not rows and seats, right? It's dynamic teams. I'm sitting in a workspace right now, right? Where we have dynamic people looking like right all over, sitting in different spaces. That's the reality of the world we're going into. Like literally. So I know we have a few minutes. What's a critical thing like in these next 3 slides that you want our end users to hear?
Just that take the risk. Take the risk, open up, your classroom, allow the space for the kids to learn about each other, because in the end, it is so much more productive for you. I mean, I see it every year. You build, not only is it the kids building relationships, but you get to know those kids better as well, right? They become, I don't want to say your friends, but you become friendly with them, right? You can now say, hey, Johnny, you like this, or you're really strong in that, or, you know, and start building those conversations, breaking down those walls. You know, I teach physics and engineering. Kids come in all the time scared. I can't do math. I can't do this. You can. We'll help you. We're a team together. And this really helps, you know, fit into that whole aspect of we're all on the same team here. It's not just the teacher and the students. It's we're a team and we learn together as a community. That's really what I, you know, want to bring out in this whole thing. How do you effectively do that? Thrively is a great tool.
And I see that what you really have done is leverage the understanding of language.
Right.
Asset-based language is a different approach. We change the language to change the conversation, to change your mind, to change the world, right? If our constant conversation is can't do this, what can you do? What can they do? What are they good at? Like, you can imagine what that does for an individual every time, you know, you're in that space of being like squished down versus amplified up, and you're allowing kids to understand that language. So I'm going to put that in the chat. So what are those 23 strengths? So let me grab a link to that. And then Amy, you've been sitting in on the space here. Like, what's fascinating you by this conversation right now?
Well, first of all, I think, you know, one of the things that I posted is the belief that every learner is a genius, and really focusing on assets-based education, shifting that dialogue, it really changes the conversation. You know, I'm honored to be colleagues with Jim and see the work that he's doing to change the lives of students and how they interact with one another. And I'm so excited that he partnered with Thrively to develop these relationships with his students even more. So kudos to you, Jim. We love to see our educators thriving and building these relationships. You make us all very, very proud. So thank you for being here tonight with us.
The other part is he's like, you know, I was thinking and sitting at lunchtime, and that's just what educators do. Like the amazing teachers that are on this call, it's like just you invent the future. And that's why this culture of sharing is super important, not closing ourselves off, opening ourselves up, because school, as you can see, was invented to have one room, one door, like one access point. But by having these webinars, it's super important. So I would be remiss if I didn't just show you in the platform, but Jim, first, please, are they able to contact you?
Yeah, this is my contact information, you know, Jay Gorman at mursd.org, short for Mendon Upton Regional School District. I have a Twitter and LinkedIn. Feel free.
Yeah, we love it. So if people who are on the call still, just put your Twitter handle or whatever way we can interact with you to learn from each other. I think it's so important. And appreciation to your administrators, because that's not always the norm, to have administrators and support systems around you to be able to be inventive. So for all the administrators out there, it's super critical. You can get this amplification, because making a difference for you makes a difference for 30 kids in your classroom, which makes a difference for all those other kids. So thanks to the administrators from your team. Super awesome. Lastly, I'm just going to show, if I could share the screen, if you want to stop sharing there and go ahead and dig in. And if Amy, if there's any conversations or questions in the chat. So this is what it is. Come into Thrively, get a free account, take the strength assessment yourself right here. Take the strength assessment, understand who you are. Everyone is a learner. You see right here, you can click on like Anna Escalante, bing, like right away. It's a story starter. Dude, focus, animator, choreographer, Anna. Yeah, Mr. E, I've been dancing for 10 years. Whoa, tell me more. Like story starter. And then you can see in the analytics right here, come into insights, far left side, strengths, interest breakdown. Who are my kids? Who's in my class? Check your class. Oh, homeroom. Who's in there? Analytic kids. Awesome. Let me partner you up. So this whole thing in here, as you come back to like our kids, this is really, really important for me, is this common humanity. Like, are there actually kids like me? Like, you just click on here, click on this little journey map, similar students, bing. Who are the similar students in our class? Hey, awesome, new kid, come on in here. Like, hey, check out, there's someone like you. Like, that's just like scratching the surface of Thrively, but just that's so magical inside of Thrively, because you can take that and lessons and playlists and all kinds of fabulous things and you know, their portfolio. And that's what I leave you with. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? Like actually a LinkedIn profile, like where you're like showcasing like all the awesomeness about you. That's the reality. Like outside of education, that's where people do recruiting and finding out. This is a junior LinkedIn profile, basically, where kids are talking about their strengths. Who am I? Not what do I do, right? Where's my goals? Where's my badges? How am I showcasing my competency? What are my projects I'm working on, right? So as I'm sharing like all these other layers to it, it starts with what's strong with you. And by putting them into teams to be allowing to step up, that's what's awesome to have educators like you, Jim. So as Amy said, feel free to reach out. Amy, you have your email there that people can
Yep.
reach out to you? Did you put it in
I
there?
put you in there too, Joe.
Ooh, all right, Jim.
That's why we're a team. Thank you, Jim. So
you
good
get
to
the,
see
you
you.
get the final word. Educators
Yeah.
always get the final word. So the final word.
Yo, thank you very much for showing up, listening, and, you know, take this. It's free, you know, contact me. We can work. I'm very open to new ideas. If you come up with a better way of doing this, I'd love to hear it.
That's it. We always say best version yet. All right. Thank you for joining our Thrively webinar. We'll see you all
Thank
guys later.
you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
making
Jim.
time.
Bye, Joe.